Welcome to Rise Up in Business, the law podcast for small business owners. This podcast is designed to share important legal information without the stuffy legal jargon. I'm Tracy Milacrane. Let's get into today's episode. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rise Up in Business podcast. I'm loving these fresh episodes for the new year. And I'm hoping that we're all enjoying some time and some spaciousness to give some thought to business, what's going to serve us this year, and where our focus is best spent. And on that vein, today I'm joined by Amy Smith, who is an online business coach for service-based business owners. Amy is also a client of mine, and I have delivered a masterclass to one of her beautiful groups at the end of last year. Amy and I are very aligned in that we're both very direct and down to earth, and it's always a pleasure talking to Amy in whatever capacity. And the conversation we have today is so good. It's full of gold for you because we're focusing on moving the needle in your business using LinkedIn. So I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, LinkedIn is a platform that I have looked at for years and thought, I'll get to it. I don't know where to start. It's a bit overwhelming. I'm already doing the things. I'll get to it when I have time. Well, the end of last year saw me shift that mindset and really take proactive steps to inform myself and learn how to better utilize LinkedIn. So I thought it would be fabulous timing to have Amy on the podcast to share with you her nuggets of gold and her tips on how to move forward with LinkedIn, how to really move the needle in your business using LinkedIn. And we have done just that. I could have spoken to Amy for hours on this topic, but relax, I did not. I didn't speak to her for hours. I would not do that to you. Let's dive in. I really hope you enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed recording this with Amy, and I'll be back in here with you afterwards. Hello, Amy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Tracy. Thanks so much for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure to have you. I'm so delighted to be sharing this conversation with business owners, particularly at this time of year when energy's high, desire is great in order to drive our business forward and do all the things that business owners have been putting off for so long. Like the beginning of anything new, it's fresh, isn't it? It's fresh, it's new, and there's time to try something new or to up-level something that we've started previously. Amy, you and I talk about this, and your messaging is so excellent when it comes to understanding that the way we do business now has changed. There's more focus now on a digital presence. There's more focus now on our online brand. And I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation with you all around LinkedIn. And I feel like so many ears will be pricking right now because I feel like LinkedIn is something that we all have known is there. We've all put it in the too hard basket and we haven't really known how to tackle it. Let's dive in and talk all things LinkedIn because you've got absolute gold to share on this.
Yeah, I'm self-confessed total LinkedIn nerd, Tracy, so I could talk about this all day long. So absolutely, let's dive in. Love it.
So we have an online business and you and I both support service-based business owners. Most of my listeners are service-based business owners. This is perfect. If I'm a service-based business owner and I'm reaching out to you and I'm saying, hey, Amy, I know it's there. I've got a page, I've got a profile, but I don't really know what to do to it. Where on earth do I start? There is so much here. It looks complicated. What do I do?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Tracy. And it's really common, I think, that for LinkedIn, I kind of refer to it sometimes as like the ugly duckling of social media. It sometimes can just be like left to the side and it's almost like an afterthought. And I think, for many of the business owners I work with, sometimes you might have had a profile that, it just might be sort of what I like to say, collecting internet dust, and you haven't really done anything with it, or maybe you've lost your logins, or maybe it's representing you in like a former life as well. Maybe you've got a past corporate career or whatever that looks like for you. And when it comes to actually getting started on LinkedIn, there's a couple of things to really think about. I think about this as kind of like building a house. And so we want to get our foundations right first. Like we want to lay a really solid cement slab because the stronger our foundations are, the stronger we can build the walls and the higher we can actually get that house to become. And so when it comes to your foundations on LinkedIn, it's all about your profile. So that is like your home base. And I've had the experience of, when I first got started in business, I actually didn't even have a website or a working website. I was so embarrassed to actually send people to my first website. But I use LinkedIn, and I use my LinkedIn profile essentially as my website at the time to generate leads and to generate clients in the business. And so the big kind of mindset switch for a lot of people is, moving forward, LinkedIn is less about having a resume on the platform and like a copy and paste of your resume and all the things that you've done. And it's more about all the things that you currently do and are going to do as well. So you almost want to switch it up, particularly if you're in business. You want to think about your LinkedIn profile as a lead magnet to really attract your clients and really speaking to them instead of being just all about yourself. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people can make when they're first starting out on LinkedIn.
That's huge, Amy, because straight away I'm thinking of profiles that I see, and it's, I've done this, I've got these degrees, this is where I've studied, this is the book, this is what I do, this is where I speak. And it is. And I feel like perhaps people are taking the opportunity to throw everything in there, hoping that something will stick and someone will go, oh, that's really impressive, I'd like to connect with you. But you're saying, don't do that. It's not about you. When I started working with my copywriter, who I've had on my team, she's fabulous, for about 4 years, one of the first things she said to me was, it's not about you, no one cares. Are you saying the same thing in the sense that it's not all about you listing everything that you've achieved? Make it about the client and what you're going to do, what you do and what you're going to do for your ideal client. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah. So what I like to say, Tracy, is very much along those lines, but more so it's around like your clients and the people that are out there, they don't care about you yet, right? So there's a caveat of yet, because we have to kind of think about the what's in it for them and why should they even pay attention or why should they even listen to me? Because on LinkedIn right now, people will spend about 6 seconds just hovering on your profile, like on that top section of your profile, before they decide to even read any more about you. And so if all they can see in that 6 seconds is, here's my PhD and here's all these letters behind my name, like it doesn't have any meaning to them. And so if you have something on there that speaks directly to your ideal client, and this is why, one of the biggest competitive advantages that you can have on LinkedIn is when you get very, very hyper specific, that's when you really start to get cut through and traction. And I think a lot of people have the frustration sometimes on any social media channel, not just LinkedIn, is that it can be really hard to penetrate through the noise and like really start to stand out in all the right ways. And you feel like you're putting all this energy into it and you're not getting the kind of return back. And so one of the things you need to do is just be really, really hyper specific and just know that no one cares about you yet until they know how you can actually help them and how you can solve the problems that they're experiencing as well. So I actually had a client, Lisa was a great example of this, because her profile was set up with what she was told was a good profile. And, she'd had colleagues reviewed it. She'd had all of these other people that had looked at her profile and said, that's a good profile. It made sense. It was all, the wording was perfect, all that kind of thing. But she was missing the mark in that it was all about her and not about her clients. And as soon as she made that shift to talk directly to the high level clients, she works with board of directors and CEOs, and she needed to speak specifically to those people. Once she actually made that shift, within 24 hours, she'd landed a $50,000 contract just from someone reaching out to her because it spoke directly to that person. So that's how powerful it can be.
That's amazing. I love real life client stories. So thank you for sharing that. It's amazing. It's inspiring. And I know that there's listeners thinking, I want that to be me. When you say get hyper specific, can you give me an example of what that actually looks like? What's hyper specific? How specific?
Yeah. So I think many of us are familiar with the term of like niching down or finding your niche when it comes to business. And I'm a big believer in going specific, especially in the early days, and then going a little bit more general later if you wanted to as well. And it kind of feels really counterintuitive, right? Because we have this feeling and this innate feeling that, well, if I only talk to just one really specific person, then aren't I just cutting out all the opportunities of everyone that could potentially work with me in a different way? But here's what I found to be true. So When we're talking about specificity, it's a bit of a tongue twister. I think that, there's always another level. And where we take our clients is really thinking about like, what is your super niche? What is your niche within the niche? Because everyone can niche down and say, for example, I'm a career coach. But I've got clients that are career coaches to mid-level banking professionals, right? So it's kind of like getting very, very hyper specific. What happens then is that it actually doesn't discount other people reaching out and saying, hey, I want to work with you in a different way. So I'm thinking of, one of my clients, Susan, in this example. And what it does is it means that even people outside of the banking industry still reach out to her for career support, but it puts her in a position of power because she's then in the driver's seat to say, well, actually, that's the kind of work that I want to take on, or that kind of client is someone I want to work with, or it's not, right? And I think that's something that's really empowering and something completely different to maybe what we've experienced, especially if you're first starting out in business and you just feel like, well, anyone with a pulse, I'll work with them. Like I can just figure it out and I'll just work with them. And so I think just having that mindset, it doesn't actually cut out your opportunities from what I've learned in practice and from what we've tested. What it does is it actually speaks directly to those premium clients that you want to work with, and it calls them out specifically so that in the sea of, in this example, career coaches, like you're seen as just the one person that they definitely want to work with opposed to anyone else because you're just hyper specific to them.
So don't be scared of niching. Niche beyond the niche is hyper specific, niche beyond the niche. And so that might mean that so many listeners have got some work to do. And now's the perfect time of year to do it, to sit down and think, well, what does that actually look like? And I totally get that it can be scary and confronting for the reasons you've said, Amy. You think then that, oh gosh, I'm going to be limiting the clients that will reach out. But the challenge here is no, reframe it. You won't be. You'll be targeting your even more ideally aligned clients. Okay, so that's a great example. Thank you for clarifying that. That's a great takeaway. All right, so once we get a handle on the LinkedIn profile, niching beyond the niche to be hyper-specific, and we've nailed that, then it's no longer our CV, but it is something that speaks directly to our ideal client who's really targeted, then what do we do?
Well, that's a great question because I think this is where a lot of people can stop, right? They think, I've got this great fancy new profile. Everyone in the world is just going to find me and come to me. And of course, in business, we would love for that to happen. But in reality, we know that as a business owner, things take work, right? Like nothing happens without some form of action, some form of implementation. And so the next thing that you want to really think about is like, how do I really accelerate my network growth with the right kinds of people? So if we're really, really clear on who that person is, then we need to use LinkedIn really effectively. We need to work with the LinkedIn algorithm to make sure that our profile is being seen by the right people. One of the best and fastest ways that you can do that is through content and sharing content and really starting to get your message out there. And again, being hyper specific with who you're actually speaking to. It's not about showing up on the newsfeed and trying to talk to everyone about everything. It's actually thinking, as you're writing that piece of content, or maybe you're filming a video or whatever that looks like for you, really thinking about like speaking to that one person that you would love to work with. Like, who is that premium client that pays you the most and pays you on time, does the work and gets great results with you, like is a joy to work with, and you feel really fulfilled when you connect with that person and you're working with them. So if you come at it from a place like that, and then you know how to craft your content strategically in a way that it gets picked up on the newsfeed, it's easy to share, it's easy for your audience to engage back with you, that's when things really start to take off on the platform as well.
So how do you craft it to do that?
Good question. I left a kind of like few open loops there.
Yeah, and there's just so much, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but let's just start there. How do you craft it that way to get it to do that?
Yeah. So one of the things I think about when it comes to your content is thinking about your content. Some people call them content pillars. I like to think them as content lanes. So do you remember as a kid, Tracy, when we used to go bowling, 10-pin bowling back in the day?
Yes.
And you'd have those like little bumper rails up on the side so that you wouldn't like have the ball go down the side and get really frustrated and, and stomp your feet. Maybe that was just me as a little kid.
Oh, no, that was me. Yes.
So I think of these like content pillars as those lanes. So usually around 3 is a really good place to start. And these are thinking about like, well, what are the macro and maybe even micro themes going on for my market that I know very, very well. Like I have no issue in sharing them because it's based around my expertise, skill set, knowledge. Like this is just what I know to be true and I want to share my expertise. And number two, what is really worthwhile for them in terms of solving their problem and also what you want to be known for on the platform. So, like, here's what you wouldn't do, right? Like, if you were an executive coach and you were wanting to target people in the C-suite based in the engineering industry, as an example, you would talk to, one of your content lanes might be around like, what are the innovations and what are the upcoming trends in the engineering industry that CEOs need to be ahead of and need to be thinking about? It might be people leadership. And another pillar might be around, well, how do you get your people to actually execute on the strategy that you're putting in front of them as a CEO? What it wouldn't be would be, let's talk about the latest in the economy. And let's talk about the latest like political thing that's going on for that week. Or let's just jump on a quick little trend that I find interesting and I think is newsworthy to share, but might not have anything to do with your market or what you want to be known for on the platform. So having these content lanes is almost like, just your bumpers. And so it just means that you can like be on target with your message and your content every time you go to create something. And you also want to think about when you're talking to your audience, when you're sharing content on LinkedIn, you want to know that people are at different stages of the buying journey. And you want to speak to people of where they're at. The moment you can actually meet people where they're at is the moment where people start to resonate, people start to share. It starts to bring in inbound warm leads and opportunities because you'll receive messages like, hey, I just saw that post you did on, sales strategy and really resonated for me. I'd love to learn more about what you do and how we can work together. So when you really get hyper specific with your content, and when you think within your content lanes and your content pillars, that's when things really start to take off on the platform as well. And I think the format matters on LinkedIn too for content. So what we're seeing, and particularly as we head into the new year and beyond, what we're seeing is like, it feels a bit counterintuitive when you're writing content because some of the things that are, go against what our English teacher would have told us in terms of grammatically correct and perfect sentence structures and everything like well thought out and put together, that's actually not working like it used to on the platform as well. So you actually want to think about how is the simplest way that I can share this message, especially if you're writing a text post or a caption. What's the simplest way that I can actually explain this concept so that a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old could understand it? And using a lot of white space and using a lot of like different formatting techniques on LinkedIn really help people to be able to consume that content, share that content, and actually take the message away from it as well. So it's a mix of like what you're saying, but also how you say it on the platform too.
How you're saying it. My gosh, you've just added meaning to the phrase stay in your lane, because we all hear it in business. It's so powerful, but yet with your content pillars, which you're referring to them as content lanes, and I'm a very visual person, so I'm visualizing these lanes and the content topics in them. So you can pick one and stay in there. And that would really help stay away from things that aren't those. So don't be sharing anything that's not in these 3 pillars. That's powerful. And that's really helpful because otherwise, without that, it almost feels a little like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks and hoping someone resonates. And it's very all over the place. And of course, we don't want to come across that way on LinkedIn either. Amy, what's your thoughts on video versus writing? So an article or just a typed caption versus a video post?
Yeah, great question. So it's interesting because LinkedIn has now actually introduced a video feed on the platform. So kind of like your Instagram Reels or your TikTok Reels, like LinkedIn is kind of experimenting with what that looks like on the platform as well. So I have seen, recently a real uptake in like short form videos on LinkedIn, and they've always worked really well. But I think now there's like a bit more of an emphasis on it too. And particularly, one thing that works really well is, again, for any social media platform, if there's something that the platform has introduced, they have a vested interest in it working out and to have a lot of people using that function and testing it. So I've had a few clients that have had amazing results from those short videos, like in terms of the impressions and things like that.
It's really great to know. And I love your point there, actually, that resonated with me, that if the platform's trying something new, they have a vested interest in it.
Yes. Yes. So they're getting like really great results from it because the platform is kind of behind making sure that it works. So even if their content is probably not the best in terms of the messaging, they're actually still getting a lot of traction with video. But when I say that, it doesn't mean that you just do video and that's all you do, or if video is the only way to get traction, because it's definitely not. Like I've had viral posts on LinkedIn in all different formats, whether it be text, video, blogs that I haven't even written myself, that I've just reshared from other people as well. And so there's plenty of different ways that you can do it. One of the things that I always come back to is just playing to your strengths. Because if you play to your strengths, often we stick to it for a longer period of time. And we know that in business, like consistency compounds. So I would much rather see someone who was like, I definitely don't want to be on video. I just want to hide my face and never actually be seen online. Like that's okay. Do some blog writing or do some text posts or something as well and play to your strengths in that way, but do it consistently. Don't just say I'm going to do this for a week and do one post on LinkedIn and expect your business and your life to change. It won't. I'm a pretty direct kind of person when it comes to that sort of thing. And so you want to make sure that you can stick to it consistently. So doing it in a medium that you actually enjoy doing and plays to your strengths is really helpful for that.
I just wrote down consistency compounds. That's a nugget of gold in itself. And you talk a lot about what does success look like for you because it's different for every business. So consistency for you is going to look different to what consistency looks like for me. Consistency compounds. So working out what it is that you're comfortable with, work out your content pillars or your content lanes, and then you can set yourself up for success on LinkedIn by working out what's going to be consistent. So it doesn't really matter then, does it, for people who are listening to this thinking, yes, this is the year for me. This is now where I'm going to start doing LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if it's once a week or twice a week, provided it's consistent and it's in a medium that you're comfortable with, because then you know you'll do it. And build on that. Is it like that? So let's say, okay, once a week I'm going to do this. After quarter one, you might be in a fabulous rhythm. Then you can increase it to more. What does success look like here, Amy, in terms of LinkedIn if we know it's working? Is it leads? Is it conversions? Is it engagement? Is it connections? People look at the little number and say, oh, I've got 500 plus connections. But isn't it about the quality of connections as well and making sure that they are your ideal client or they're in your niche market?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, as you said, it can look different for everyone depending on what your goals are. So I think the first thing that you need to get really clear on is like, why am I using LinkedIn? What is my objective? If it's to add a lead generation platform and create more leads in the business, if it's to add another lead channel, then we want to make sure that we're measuring how many leads that we're getting. Are we getting warm inbound leads? Are we actively and proactively reaching out to people and generating leads that way, which you can do on the platform too? But there's a little caveat to doing it the right way, Tracy, because I feel like, yourself and myself and others included that might be listening to this, many of us have probably had the experience of people reaching out into our DMs with like a really hard pitch and it just feels awful. So that's kind of like a sidetrack conversation to your question, but it's kind of where you want to go with the platform and what you actually want to get out of it. And also what approach do you want to take that feels genuine and authentic to you and your brand as well? Because there's many different ways that you can get there and there's many different things that you can do. So, I was working with a client that wanted to go viral on the platform and wanted to, generate millions of followers. We've done that. And that's a very different strategy to someone who's in business who says, I just want 1,000 true fans and premium people and quality connections in my business because I know that I only need, 15 really high premium clients per year to work with at a really decent rate. And that's the business that gives me a really great lifestyle and gives me a really great thing to do as well. And the growth and the income and all those things that matter to me. So it really depends on like outlining what your goals are. And you can definitely measure it on the platform, which is something that I think is really great. So there's a couple of issues going on. There's some people that are yet to start, and so they don't really know what's possible. And so anything is great in the beginning because you just want to teach LinkedIn that you're active. But we have other people, that might have been on the platform for a while and might have been doing all the things that they think to do and sharing the content and engaging and adding new people to the network, but they're not actually getting the results that they want in terms of how that's actually translating to clients. They might have made a bunch of new friends and had some nice conversations, but they don't actually lead to clients. So that's a different problem that you want to solve to someone who's, getting started and needs to sort of build their activity on the platform as well. So yes, I hope that answers your question, but there's many different ways you can do it.
There's so much to unpack, and I'll ask you in a moment how you help people. But to sum up from my perspective there, it's getting really clear on what you want to achieve. So what's your end in mind? And I talk about that a lot with my clients. And for LinkedIn, it's no different. So what are you using it for? And then putting a strategy together that you can execute consistently to help achieve your objectives in your business, because your objectives are different to the business down the road. So having that clarity, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Amy. We could, as you said, we could talk about this for hours, and gosh, I would love to, but let's not. This is fabulous in terms of clarity, direction, focus. If this is your time to invest time and energy into LinkedIn, then there's so many nuggets of gold you can take away from just this conversation, but you have so much more to offer. Can you talk about that? How do people work with you? How do people find you?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. amylsmith.com is my website. And of course, you'll find me on LinkedIn. That is the main platform. So feel free to find me at Amy Smith Coach on LinkedIn and send me a connection request and message. And I'd obviously be happy to support if you've got a question that's come out from this podcast as well. We help a lot of coaches, consultants, service-based businesses, particularly in the corporate space, in the corporate sort of training world as well. We help them to add an extra 10 to 50K per month in their business. And we use LinkedIn as the main channel to do that. So we support across their business, but we use LinkedIn as the main strategies that we help to really grow as well. So the in-demand program is how we support people with that.
Excellent. And you've got all of those details on the website.
Correct, yes.
Okay, we're going to put the links to your LinkedIn and to your website in the show notes to make it really easy for people to find you. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I'm really excited to get this out into the world because I know so many people have been sitting back and watching LinkedIn, and I love how you framed it, the ugly duckling of social media, and perhaps it's unfair. So now's the time. Excellent. Amy, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Tracy.
Are you inspired now? Is now the time for LinkedIn? Because that's how I feel. Even though I had started focusing on it at the end of last year, talking to Amy, I was taking some notes in this episode, and I'm going to go back and listen to it for myself as well. But if ever there was a time, I think it's now. And this is the perfect time of year, as I said, to think about what can best serve us in our business moving forward. And using LinkedIn, if done well, can be so powerful. And I'm getting that from so many people I'm speaking to who have expertise on this platform. Amy is no exception. We'll include Amy's details in the show notes, so go and take a look at her website, see whether it resonates. I hope you've taken away from this episode what you need to give you clarity on where you want to focus this year to move the needle in business. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I love receiving your feedback. So let me know what your thoughts on the episode with Amy, and tell me, I'd love to hear from you. Is LinkedIn something that you are going to explore in your business this year? If there's anything else that you would love me to cover on the podcast this year, please feel free to reach out. I love receiving your feedback. And whilst I do a lot of forward planning with the podcast, I'm also really fluid and flexible. So people do reach out to me from time to time to say, hey, Tracy, I'm loving it, but I would really love it if you did an episode on this. I'm so happy to hear from you. So feel free to share that with me. It will be very well received. Thanks so much, everyone. Catch you next time.